Can you even fathom the fact that an act of betrayal ultimately resulted in the capture of El Mayo, the drug lord who the authorities had been searching for what seemed like hundreds of years? Additionally, the notion that El Chapo's son is one of the individuals responsible for El Mayo's capture is just mind-boggling. Consequently, this is what happened. El Mayo arrested. The events that led up to one of the most major and shocking cartel busts in recent history occurred days ago, and details are still coming to light about what led up to it. Joaquin Guzman Lopez, who is one of the sons of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who was convicted of being the leader of a cartel, deceived Zambada and planned their arrest. According to police, Zambada, who is 76 years old, believed that he and Guzman Lopez were going to travel to northern Mexico in order to look at real estate. Nevertheless, their tiny private jet made an emergency landing north of the border close to El Paso, Texas, where police from the United States were waiting on the runway. Nevertheless, how was it that Guzman Lopez was able to carry out the act of betrayal that the authorities have described? Also, the question is, why did he betray Zambada? At his first appearance in federal court on Friday, Zambada entered a plea of not guilty to all of the accusations against him. According to Stephen Dudley, an investigator with Insight Crime who has spent more than a decade looking into drug trafficking and organized crime, it would not surprise me at all if the story changes from today to tomorrow or next week. However, at a press conference that took place on Friday, Mexico's president hinted that he, too, had a lot of concerns regarding what took place. The government of the United States has to give a complete report. It can't be just general statements, President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said. There has to be transparency. It should be obvious that Zambada and Guzman Lopez's arrests represent a significant step forward in the decades-long attempts to apprehend and bring to justice those who are believed to be the leaders of drug cartels. Additionally, the information that has been disclosed up to this point regarding the events that led up to this momentous moment provides a fascinating look into the inner workings of what the police characterize as one of the most infamous and sinister criminal organizations found anywhere in the world. When the authorities had Zambada in their sights, it was not the first time they had done so. Zambada said that Mexico's military had attempted to capture him at least 4 times in the past, according to an interview that appeared in the Mexican magazine Proceso in the year 2010. "I fled through the highlands where I know the branches, the streams, the rocks, everything. They catch me if I'm still or if I'm careless, like El Chapo," he said. Zambada disclosed to Proceso at the time that he was continuously plagued by anxiety around the possibility of being apprehended. He said, "I'm terrified that they'll lock me up." Lichtman, who was also representing the older Guzman, was the defense counsel. At the time, he made the accusation that Zambada had paid the Mexican government in order to accuse El Chapo and continue to be free to operate the cartel. On the other side, the reward for information that led to Zambada's capture was increased to $15 million by the authorities in the United States in 2021. Furthermore, the legendary skill of Zambada to avoid being captured has been mentioned in narco corrido songs that have been written about him throughout the years. One of the lyrics that can be found in the 2022 corrido Señor Zambada, which is sung by El Fantasma, an enigma norteño from Zambada's point of view, is as follows: "I know very well that they want to catch me, that the government wanted to lock me up, but they are going to keep wanting that, because no matter how much they look, they are not going to find me." In an interview with CNN, a former agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration named Mike Vigil said that his elusive reputation also grabbed the notice of his adversaries. Despite the fact that Mayo Zambada had been involved in the drug trade for more than half a century, he had never been apprehended or sentenced to any kind of incarceration, according to Vigil, so he is highly respected even by his rivals. Zambada and Guzman Lopez reportedly boarded an airplane together on Thursday, with the expectation that they would be inspecting property together near the border, according to officials who talked with CNN. In addition, Zambada was unaware that U.S. agents had taken advantage of a schism within the Sinaloa cartel, and that Guzman Lopez was, in fact, assisting in Zambada's apprehension. A power battle that had been brewing for a long time between Zambada and El Chapo's sons, who are also known as the Chapitos, was about to take a dramatic turn. In the beginning, agents from Homeland Security Investigations, who were in charge of the operation, were doubtful when Guzman Lopez made the offer, according to an official who was aware of the operation and discussed it with CNN. On the other hand, federal authorities were waiting for them at the Santa Teresa Airport, which is located close to El Paso, Texas, when the airplane they were traveling in arrived on Thursday. In an interview with Reuters, a worker at the airport said that he saw a Beechcraft King Air landing on the runway on Thursday afternoon. Federal officials were already waiting for the airplane to arrive. 2 individuals got off the plane and were calmly taken into custody, claimed the man, who refused to comment on his identity out of fear for his safety. He continued continued by saying, "It seemed like a pretty calm, arranged thing." Zambada and Guzman Lopez are both facing charges in the United States for allegedly overseeing the criminal activities of the cartel. These operations include the organization's deadly fentanyl manufacturing and trafficking networks, according to a statement released by the United States Attorney General Merrick Garland following the arrests. Overall, the arrests were hailed as a significant triumph by high-ranking authorities in the United States. On the other hand, there were experts who showed a more cautious approach to evaluating the possible consequences. It's a historic capture, of course, and symbolic, but is it going to create a collateral effect or have an impact on drug trafficking? I really doubt that, the experts said. As much because El Mayo had pulled back already from the day-to-day operations, and the world of drug trafficking is really now a different world from when he started. It's much more decentralized. It's much more like a franchise. There are contractors, subcontractors, other contractors. There are many parts that can be easily replaced. Furthermore, speculating on what could happen next, Mexico's president pointed to Zambada's own words in the 2010 Proceso interview. He said that in the event that he was to be arrested or murdered, there would be no significant consequences. Whether they are locked up, dead, or extradited, their replacements are already out there. According to experts, these arrests, along with other high-profile kingpin takedowns, are expected to spark a new wave of bloodshed as competing organizations compete for territory and influence. In addition, several reactions that occurred following the arrest of El Mayo caused extra uncertainty, so let's find out more. Mexican president and El Mayo's lawyer reactions. In a statement released on Friday, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador encouraged the authorities in the United States to deliver a comprehensive report on the operation that resulted in the apprehension of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the head of the Sinaloa cartel. "It is not just a matter of general statements. There must be transparency," López Obrador said during a daily news conference. It was reported by the President of Mexico that the arrest was carried out without the knowledge of the Mexican administration. Also, the United States Embassy in Mexico alerted López Obrador of the arrest shortly after the United States agents had taken Zambada into custody. López Obrador praised the arrest as a demonstration of the positive ties that exist between the nations that are in close proximity to one another, despite the fact that no Mexican services were engaged in the operation to apprehend Zambada. "I think it is a sign that there is a joint effort, even though in this specific case, neither the Secretary of Defense nor the Navy participated," he said. López Obrador also highlighted the severe fentanyl epidemic that is now afflicting the United States of America. According to some statistics, this epidemic has resulted in the deaths of more than 100,000 people in the United States. Despite the fact that the arrest represents a significant step forward in the fight against drug trafficking, the President of Mexico said that it is not enough to tackle the problem of drug use in the United States. It is progress, without a doubt, but that is not all without undermining the actions that U.S. agencies took, solving the problem of drug consumption by addressing the causes, because if consumption continues, the problem will not be solved completely, he said. The statement made by López Obrador is that if the strategy of the government does not concentrate on addressing the fundamental reasons behind drug usage, then other individuals will take the place of the criminals who are jailed. Furthermore, the attorney for the senior Mexican drug cartel leader, who is now in the custody of the United States of America, refuted allegations that his client was deceived into flying into the nation. He said that his client was forcibly kidnapped by the son of Joaquín El Chapo Guzman from Mexico. In other words, attorney Frank Perez said that his client did not arrive at the New Mexico airport of his own free choice. According to a statement released by Perez, "My client neither surrendered nor negotiated any terms with the U.S. government." He added, "Joaquín Guzman Lopez forcibly kidnapped my client. He was ambushed, thrown to the ground, and handcuffed by 6 men in military uniforms and Joaquín. His legs were tied and a black bag was placed over his head." It is possible that removing El Mayo from the criminal scene may precipitate a chaotic internal fight for control over the cartel, similar to what has happened with the arrest or execution of previous kingpins throughout history. According to the opinions of experts, this might also make it easier for a younger and more aggressive generation of Sinaloa traffickers to further their careers. Perez refused to provide any more insight beyond his statement from Sunday, stating simply that his client had been traveling with minimal security detail and was set up after being summoned to a meeting with Guzman Lopez. Additionally, Zambada was tricked into flying into the United States. According to a law enforcement officer from the United States who is acquainted with the situation. A member of the government who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not allowed to discuss the topic said that the boss of the cartel boarded a flight under the mistaken impression that he was traveling to another location. The official did not disclose any specifics, such as who convinced Zambada to board the airplane or where precisely he believed he was going to travel. On Friday morning, Zambada made his appearance in federal court in El Paso. During his appearance, a judge read the allegations that were brought against him and told him of his rights. According to the records of the court, he has entered a plea of not guilty to many allegations of narcotics trafficking and is now being detained without bail. According to Perez, his subsequent court appearance is slated to take place on Thursday. Following the arrest of El Mayo, the United States has devised a new strategy to eliminate the Sinaloa cartel, and it involves the use of force. So here it is. America's new plan to destroy the Sinaloa cartel. According to a recent report that cites 3 individuals acquainted with Donald Trump's thinking, if he is successful in retaking the White House in November, he is mulling over the possibility of deploying special operations teams into Mexico with the intention of eliminating the leaders of powerful drug cartels. Also, Donald Trump is reportedly basing his thinking on the successful military operation that he authorized in 2019 to eliminate Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. However, using this method could possibly cause the Mexican government to get enraged. Rolling Stone was informed by one of the sources that the former president had said that the United States government needed to establish a kill list of drug lords. According to Rolling Stone, Trump has asserted that the United States armed forces have tougher killers than they do, and he has pondered the question of why there have not been any assassination operations carried out in the past. On the other hand, a spokeswoman for Trump's team refused to acknowledge the claim. This is nothing more than fake news from Rolling Stone, who spoke with cowardly, unnamed sources who either have no idea what they are talking about or are completely fabricating what will happen in a second Trump administration. According to the statement, let us be very specific here. Unless a message is coming directly from President Trump or an authorized member of his campaign team, no aspect of future presidential staffing or policy announcements should be deemed official. Despite this, it seems that the conversations with friends, including a senator, are a reflection of Trump's public stance, which outlines how he would deploy military resources to address the issue. One of the statements that can be seen on his campaign website is, deploy all necessary military assets, including the U.S. Navy, to impose a full naval embargo on the cartels to ensure they cannot use our region's waters to traffic illicit drugs to the U.S.'s, order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other covert and overt actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations. While he was in office, President Trump did give serious consideration to taking unprecedented actions. The book, written by Mark Esper, who served as his second defense secretary, included a description of them. On 2 separate occasions throughout the summer of 2020, the president inquired about the possibility of the armed forces launching missiles into Mexico with the intention of destroying drug laboratories. This was due to the fact that the Mexican government did not have control of their own country. Furthermore, officials from the United States have said that they have discovered and penetrated the Mexican drug organization that is mostly responsible for the fentanyl crisis that is responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans each year. A significant portion of the bloodshed was attributed to the Chapitos network, which is a subgroup of the Sinaloa drug cartel, according to the Justice Department, which issued a comprehensive set of charges that targeted 22 commanders and kingpins. Ann Milgram, the administrator of the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, issued a statement in which she claimed, over the last year and a half, the DEA proactively infiltrated the Sinaloa cartel and the Chapitos network, obtained unprecedented access to the organization's highest levels, and followed them across the world. The records also detail substantial dealings involving the exchange of firearms for fentanyl, which entail the illegal importation of weapons of military grade from the United States. According to the Justice Department, a Sinaloa operator in Vienna, Austria, attempted to make arrangements for a fentanyl for weapons trade in December 2022. The proposed trade comprised hundreds of rocket-propelled grenades and grenade launchers, as well as 500 AR-15 rifles. According to authorities from the United States, the Chapitos network is responsible for a campaign of murder and terror inside Mexico, in addition to the thousands of fatalities that have occurred in American communities as a result of fentanyl. When the charges were revealed, the United States Attorney General, Merrick Garland, said at a news conference that the individuals in question often tortured and killed their victims. He added, they have fed some of their victims, dead and alive, to tigers belonging to the Chapitos. In addition, as stated in the court records, a Chapitos leader leader by the name of Ovidio Guzman Lopez is said to have admitted that fentanyl is dangerous if the dose is only a little off. Indeed, multiple cooks used by the cartel to manufacture its fentanyl at Chapitos controlled labs in Mexico have died from testing the product, the federal indictment states. These guys are absolute creeps, these Chapitos dudes, said Sam Quinones, a journalist who has written extensively on the cartels and the fentanyl issue. I think bringing these previously untouchable princes of drugs to some kind of justice is a very good thing all the way around. Furthermore, the United States' assertion that destroying the Chapitos network would lessen the number of people who die from overdoses in American neighborhoods has been called into doubt by experts as the diplomatic gulf over the fentanyl crisis continues to grow. I'm quite pessimistic, said Jonathan Calkins, a researcher affiliated with Carnegie Mellon University who focuses on the study of drug trafficking. He added, in the best of all possible worlds, we would literally shrink the supply. That's very difficult to do. That was very difficult to do when it was cocaine and heroin, and for a bunch of reasons, it's much harder with a synthetic. NPR was informed by Calkins and other individuals that in the event that the Chapitos were to be apprehended or removed from the fentanyl trade, other groups within the Sinaloa cartel or other big drug cartels, such as the Jalisco New Generation cartel, would swiftly take up the responsibilities that would be left behind. Grillo said that the war on drugs has not been successful, drawing attention to the fact that several other drug kingpins, including El Chapo, have previously been apprehended. We've got more deaths from drug overdose than ever. We've got more violence between drug cartels in Mexico than ever. However, Grillo, along with other individuals who were interviewed, said that bringing the Chapitos to justice is a commendable aim, even if it does not stop the flow of fentanyl being distributed. They've been involved in multiple murders and intimidation, he said. They're trafficking fentanyl, which has led to the deaths of thousands and thousands of Americans. So they're bad people, and having impunity isn't good. On the other hand, there are even more high-ranking drug criminals associated with the Sinaloa cartel who have been jailed, so maybe the American strategy to stop the fentanyl crisis is succeeding. Other leaders arrested, and the fentanyl crisis. One of the 7 members and affiliates of the Sinaloa cartel who were recently sentenced to jail by a federal court in South Florida is the Skittles Man, known for his enormous supply of fentanyl tablets that come in rainbow colors. According to federal officials, the Skittles Man provided Hector Apodaca Alvarez with thousands of fentanyl tablets that were manufactured in Mexico and were very addictive. In discussions that were taped, Apodaca Alvarez and the Skittles Man asked an undercover agent whether he would provide them with weaponry, including high-powered rifles with a caliber of .50, which they intended to smuggle into Mexico. Thus, Apodaca Alvarez was taken into custody in South Florida in the previous year, as he was delivering 16 kilograms of fentanyl and 2 kilograms of cocaine to the undercover agent. At the beginning of this month, the Skittles Man was arrested as well. But that's not all. One of their colleagues, Luis Tejada Velasquez, was sentenced to 20 years in jail by United States District Judge Michael Moore at the federal court located in Miami. These 3 individuals were involved in a conspiracy with 4 other members of the Sinaloa cartel, who have also been sentenced to jail for the distribution of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine in various regions of the United States, including Arizona, California, Florida, and Kentucky. According to federal prosecutors with the United States Attorney's Office, Apodaca Alvarez used the United States Mail and his own trucking business to send tens of thousands of pressed fentanyl pills, as well as multiple kilograms of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine to the undercover agent who was based in South Florida between the months of June 2022 and May 2023. According to the prosecution, Apodaca Alvarez disclosed to the undercover agent that he was collaborating with members of the Sinaloa cartel in order to sell the narcotics. He further said that the power of his pressed fentanyl tablets was dropping people everywhere. In addition, the Sinaloa cartel is at the heart of the fentanyl crisis, as stated in the National Drug Threat Assessment conducted by the DEA. In the first half of 2023 alone, federal officials reported that fentanyl was responsible for the deaths of 38,000 people in the United States, making it the most lethal drug danger that the United States has ever faced. The fentanyl epidemic has caused a deafening silence as thousands of people have overdosed and died, said Mackenzie LaPointe, the U.S. Attorney in South Florida. During the investigation, the DEA and other agencies were able to collect about 21 kilograms of pure fentanyl, 70,000 rainbow-colored fentanyl pills, 3,000 M30 blue fentanyl tablets, 243 pounds of crystal meth, 2 kilograms of cocaine, and 24 guns, including 18 rifles and 6 pistols. Furthermore, the Mexican border community is now experiencing a full-blown drug epidemic, which has taken hold of the city. In spite of this, the president of the nation, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has attempted to minimize the severity of the scenario. "We don't produce fentanyl here. We don't consume fentanyl here," he said last year. Following that controversial claim, he has pledged to present new legislation to Congress with the intention of prohibiting the use of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. The people who are working on the front lines in Tijuana are concerned that it could be too little, too late. Also, the head of the state's forensic services, Dr. Cesar Gonzalez Vaca, has informed that his department has been doing fentanyl tests on every deceased corpse that has been brought into their morgues in Mexicali and Tijuana, which are both border cities. According to him, the investigation came to the conclusion that around 1/4 of the corpses in Mexicali included fentanyl. But that's not all. In July 2024, the data for Tijuana were as high as 1/3 of the bodies. "It seems the closer we are to the border, the more consumption of this drug we see," explains Dr. Gonzalez Vaca. "Unfortunately, we can't compare to other states in the Republic as, in Baja California, we're the first state to carry out this study," he adds, urging his counterparts around the country to help build a clearer national picture. Additionally, some who assist those residing in Tijuana assert that the president has misjudged the severity of the Mexican situation. One of the harm reduction centers in the city is called Prevencasa, and it offers medical services and needle exchange to those who are addicted to drugs. The director of the organization, Lily Pacheco, stated, "All 4 items of drug paraphernalia test positive for fentanyl. The city is awash with it. Of course, fentanyl exists. To suggest otherwise is a lack of recognition of this reality. We have the evidence right here," she says, pointing at the testing strips. She continued, "The overdoses we see and all those who've died from fentanyl are part of that evidence too. Ignoring the problem won't solve it. On the contrary, people will keep dying. The United States of America, which is the largest market for illicit narcotics in the world, has been struck particularly hard by the fentanyl crisis. Overdoses claimed the lives of around 70,000 persons in the region in the previous year. In this instance, Elijah Gonzalez was one of them. He was just 15 years old when he accidentally overdosed on a counterfeit Xanax tablet from Mexico. He was unaware that the medication included fentanyl or any other stimulant. His body was just unable to deal with it. His mother said, 'I miss him every day. He was going to graduate this June. A piece of me died that day that he died.' Sadly, deaths of this kind are not uncommon in the United States. The authorities in the state of Texas claim that fentanyl is responsible for the deaths of more than 5 Texans every single day. In El Paso County alone, fentanyl was implicated in 85% of unintentional overdoses like Elijah's. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check our other similar and amazing videos on the screen. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.